the drive, goes inside the floor. Scoops it up. Booker brings the boom.
And we are once again bringing the boom on Thirsty Thursday, Run Pure Sports NBA Final Countdown. It is not an up to lock show. We are coming to you about an hour early. We've got a short 5-game slate on tonight's DraftKings and FanDuel for that matter. And we're going to break it all down. I'm joined, as I always am on Thursdays, by my friends, DC and Sweet Travis. Sweet Travis, looks like the housekeeper has been there. The furniture has been dusted. The lighting fixtures have been replenished. It's really nice to see. And looks like you also showered. So it's a big day here at Run Pure Sports. Travis, how are you doing?
Yeah, I actually haven't showered today. So you don't cash those tickets. I haven't showered yet. I am. You guys are down. I mean, listen, I don't even know the click 4K thing, but you guys are boomers. You probably don't even know anything about that, right?
I mean, you click and you hold it and it comes up in 4K. Yeah, it's brighter, it's deeper. It's like 3D when you were born.
I guess so.
The funny part, JT, is you come in with your own Mangone roast, which very funny, by the way. I had also planned my own. Yours was the shower. I was going to say it's a beautiful day here in Colorado, and I'm sure Mangone has been out enjoying the sunshine before the cold front. Mangone, I assume you've been enjoying the weather today?
What did I do today? I went to the gas station.
Okay, there we go.
I did. I will say this. I left. Actually, no, I did it. I did DC. So I moved to a new place, and I was driving to get.
It looks the same. What do you mean you moved to a new place?
I mean, I brought the furniture, right? I had the.
Okay. All right, good.
But anyways, as I was saying, I got a great view of the mountains on my drive to get coffee today, DC. So I did appreciate the beauty of before the big football weekend that we have coming up, because it is going to be a fun football weekend. Not only that, we got the national championship on Monday, and not only that, Martin Luther King Day on the 20th. So we'll have basketball all day long. I'm sure no one's ready for that yet either. It sneaks up on you. So that Monday comes up, basketball all day long.
I have the feeling our audience is looking more forward to the football on the weekend than the basketball on MLK Day. Just a guess.
Well, I'm just saying it sneaks up on you, DC, because like that Sunday you're gonna watch Bill. You're gonna watch Bill.
Is that like a Christmas slate where it starts early and goes all day?
There's I think 8 games, but it starts at noon or something crazy like that, or 11. So just be ready for a little bit of an all-day event. Then you got the national championship that night, and of course the inauguration. So I don't know where you stand on that, but that is a big deal to some people. So we got a big 4 or 5 days coming up.
Of course, Mangone left the house to go to the gas station. Everybody has to eat, and we know what kinds of tasty snacks they have at the Quick Trip. And so, of course, you were out to do that. And you're right, Travis. There is a big weekend ahead. We've got, of course, tonight's NBA slate tomorrow, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, huge Millie Maker on DraftKings. And then separately, 2-game slate. And then Monday, you mentioned a day of service, Martin Luther King Day, basketball all day long. And depending on what you feel about this country, which side you're on, you're either going to be celebrating or out setting your neighborhood on fire. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend. And get in the Discord at Run Pure Sports. We're talking about it the whole time. DC, how are you doing on this Thirsty Thursday?
Yeah, fantastic. Like you said, really, really fun weekend coming. Can't wait for these football games, big UFC card, national championship. Going to be awesome. So excited for that. But, still, of course, focused on today. And JT, listen, we've gone long enough without giving you your proper dues. Second place in the flagship last night for $25K. I know you've been grinding the MME streets pretty hard, so awesome to hit one. Talk about it a little bit on your big score last night. Congratulations.
Yeah, it feels good. Actually, we were texting, we were DMing, we were talking about the slate the night before, and I mentioned that and we've talked about this here on the show, right? How different NBA is now than it was before the pandemic, of course, and a couple of reasons for that, I think. But the primary reason is the rosters expanded and they never collapsed. So added a few roster spots because guys were out sick due to health protocols. And then they just never changed that. And so where you used to have, I think it was 11, maybe 12 guys on a roster, now it's 15, 16, something like that. And so on any given night, depending on the team's schedule, who's in, who's out, how the game is going, we've seen these coaches fit, right? And so it's just been much more difficult, certainly, I think, in single entry, even in 3-max. And I said, you know what? There's got to be a way to do this. And I started playing around. I started looking at some of the player pools of guys who were consistently doing well. And I decided that there was a way to do it. And I started playing around with it. You and I were sending messages back the other night. And then it was last night that I got real close. And it's interesting because the guy in front of me had 4 lineups and I had 150. So props to him because he had a very unique lineup in first place and really just, outstanding work there. But I got first, I got 21st. I think I got a lineup in 50th. So 3 lineups in the top 100. That's kind of where I want to be. And then every now and then one of those will sneak up front, as they say. So thank you to obviously everybody on Twitter and in the Discord. It's a small win compared to some of the guys here at Run Pure, but certainly something that's meaningful and excited to continue doing it, continue breaking these games down. I had a core up, DC, that had, I think, 2 of the guys that were ultimately in my winning lineup. So pretty happy about that. We'll continue to do that. And like we said, a big weekend here. Go ahead, drop your questions in if you have them relative to this slate or anything else. Questions about Travis's lifestyle, which we may or may not air. So
Can I drop a question, JT? I have a question.
Yeah, you can absolutely. We may not answer it, but
we have some time. DC is a very creative guy on Twitter.
5-game slates, so plenty of time.
Yeah, I've been trying to come up with a creative betting idea for Twitter. I've been trying to think of ideas for a while. DC, I think I got one that's not bad, but it takes some work. Maybe you'll find
my prediction is going to be terrible, but go ahead. I'm all ears, Travis.
That's fine, but we'll see. I mean, it could just be a little too much because simply you want something that's like quick hitting. But my idea was, I give out one bet a day, right? Probably a prop. I give out 1 bet a day, and throughout the week, if I make money, right? If I make money units wise, I'm good. If I lose, I have to do a punishment, right? And each week you come up with a different punishment. I don't know what those would be.
There's the problem with your idea. It's too hard to come up with the punishments. They're not going to be funny after a while. After
That's what I was thinking. I think it's a little too difficult. Again, I'm trying to come up with something. I think I'll get something good at some point, but I just don't think there's enough good funny ones because it's like not like you're with the people all the time. I just think it's a tough one. I mean, you could do it where you like have to like eat something on air, but I don't know. After a while, that would get stupid. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm gonna guide. This is a good question and something I've been trying to do too. I mean, this is kind of what we're doing, JT, right? Trying to guess who's going to smash their points, rebounds.
I'm laughing at the comment after this.
Yes. I mean, if that's the punishment, then this is a great idea. But
I mean, DC, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but like, I would definitely push the punishments. Like, I'm willing to go through the gauntlet.
You're gonna run up a hill or some shit. Like, no, nobody cares.
No, I'm not. I'm actually not going to run up a hill right now, DC. I'm not. Running up a hill is stupid. Like, I don't know.
What's your first punishment that you've come up with?
I haven't came up with one. I just came up with the idea. I need more.
You don't have a better idea than running up a hill, do you?
It doesn't sound like a fully formulated bit, so maybe next Thursday, Mangone, you can maybe next Thursday. That was good. Maybe next Thursday, come a little bit better prepared.
Yeah, I'm just workshopping stuff. Okay.
I know. We appreciate that. AP is in here. Said that they've lifted the gifts up to lock ban. Maybe lift the ban on politics discussion.
Yes.
Not so fast, my friend. Not so fast.
Yes.
Let's not do that.
I'm all for it, AP.
Here.
One vote.
W's here, and then DC. Did you see the Justin Verlander press conference when he recently signed with the Giants. For some reason, the Giants signed him, and he was using Kate Upton's Zoom email, and they're married, and they've been married for a while. And so I'm just wondering, Travis, is there anything you need to tell us? Anything you want to share with us? Have you and Rubio formed a union?
Oh, no. So you missed it. I was on, that's why my name's Rubio. I was on Up the Lock yesterday. I jumped on because JSU and Big T, they were sitting in the room, and it was like 6:07. And I was like, what is, like, start the damn show. So I wanted to go incognito, and I didn't want to have my name in there. So I put Rubio. How did you mute my
I figured it would be just.
Get the fuck out of here. That was unnecessary. You asked me a question, right?
Yeah.
And then you muted me. So
because the answer was boring. I'm like, what's going on?
You didn't even let me finish. I went like
right.
5 seconds. But you're not getting the story now, okay? You can sit on your 25 stacks and not get my fun story. So
all right.
Thanks for watching Up the Lock yesterday.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't, Travis. All right.
If you watched, maybe you would have got first place. I'll say that. Maybe you would have got first.
Yes, maybe. Okay. We'll get into the 5-game slate here. Not a ton of news. There are a couple of back-to-backs. The Clippers on a back-to-back in a late-night contest that is on the slate. Kawhi is going to miss in that one. Fred VanVleet has been ruled out for Houston on a back-to-back. Tari Eason now listed questionable, so we'll talk about the impact when we get to that. Other than that, not a ton of news on this slate, at least so far. Of course, DC, last night, surprisingly, in the middle of the slate, the most expensive player on the slate gets ruled out of nowhere, something that the Nuggets don't do very often. And when I was thinking about the slate yesterday, seeing how I think it was Jamal Murray played 37 or 39 minutes the night before, coming off of that injury, I said, look, I'm thinking Jamal Murray was going to be out. He wasn't even questionable. And then out of nowhere, Jokic comes up and is out. So something like that could happen tonight. Because
actually, one of my 3 teams was early game stack with Joker as my only late player. And the only swap was leaving like whatever it was, 2,300 for LaMelo Ball was the only thing you could do.
Yeah,
it wasn't a good team anyway, but that almost never happens to me.
It was difficult for a lot of people. I know King of Queens, our guy, was in there, had a pretty good lineup with just Choco left. The swaps were really, it was Şengün or it was LaMelo Ball, and both of those guys did fine. Right. They didn't give you, though, the 75-85 that you were hoping for with Jokic against the Rockets, hoping that maybe Murray gets rolled out. Mangone, how did you deal with that last night? I know you said you had some lineups that were doing really well on FanDuel. Did that affect you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, the Jokic stuff was definitely big. I didn't get I would have liked to have a lot more Murray and Westbrook right when it happened. I felt like I was locked into a lot of my spots. I did get some, like, I think I was a little bit overweight on Westbrook. I was like even with the field on Murray. Even got a little DeAndre Jordan sprinkled in there, but end of the day, it didn't really matter. I mean, I had teams that were close to the top, but if Westbrook would have made like a crazy run, I would have had his chance, but he just didn't, right? And in the second half, I was like, hey, if Westbrook keeps this game close, I'm going to be live, and he just didn't pull it off. But that's how it works sometimes.
Yeah. One interesting thing, JT, I'm sure you kind of agree with this, is a lot of what the NBA has become right now in terms of building winning lineups is picking out the good chalk and the bad chalk, because we have all these value options. There's a ton of them, and look at the difference in the performances of 2 of them in back-to-back nights. Reggie Jackson, right? He's like 60% owned, completely bust, tanks, I played him. And then the next night, Keaton Wallace absolutely nukes at a lower percentage than Reggie Jackson was. And I think you're doing yourselves, and I do this sometimes myself, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're like, they were both great plays. One worked, one didn't. You should at least look back. What? You don't agree with my going?
No, I'm saying, no, you're right. Bogdanovich was, I was preaching it on the Up the Lock show. It was like,
you have to trust your gut sometimes because they are projected well. But I knew Reggie Jackson is just complete dust. He's an old man, right? Like, this is not going to – when you compare him to Keaton Wallace, a youngster, like, trying to get playing time now, those two are not similar plays, right?
Yep.
And it's in the era of projections that we're in, asking yourselves those questions. There's tons of value plays to pick from every night. Picking them right, there's some like almost, I want to say like personal responsibility and getting that part of it right. That's a huge part of NBA DFS.
And we have an example tonight. We have an example of that tonight when we get to. I won't give it away. We'll talk about it when we get to that game. But
JT, real quick on that point, like Reggie Jackson's a better play if like Paul George is in, right? He's playing with these veterans, and it's like clearly a game that they're going to try. Like Bogdanovich wasn't starting, right? His role has not changed. And you have to also take into account as the slate develops, right? If Keaton Wallace, if we knew he was starting 2 hours before, I said this in chat, in the Discord chat, someone said, I can't believe this Keaton Wallace news came. I said, dude, this came at the perfect time, 30 minutes before. Not enough people will adjust. If this happened 3 hours before, Keaton Wallace would have been 50%. We're getting a discount on one of the best plays on the slate, while Bogdanovich is over-owned in a really bad spot. And on top of that, you're leveraging the situation. It was just absolutely a perfect situation.
The Bogdanovich thing is interesting. Now, Keaton Wallace is what DC was mainly talking about, and DC mentioned him. What's that?
Yeah, McGill's talking about like a strategy of swapping, of course, and of course that's a huge part of it. I'm more talking about like, I think there's a clear trend where the youngsters, when they get these chances, those are the guys that go off, and then it's the veterans that are in the roles. They're like maybe they can hang on to their minutes, and then you get a Reggie Jackson. I think. Just everybody's hurt, missing games. Yeah.
DC, I agree with you. And another thing to watch for, I almost said it on the Up Vlog show yesterday, but I just didn't have the balls to say it. But Daquan Plowden, I was like, they're calling this dude up, right? And they're playing a bunch of nobodies. And if you don't like Bogdanovich, like I didn't, this guy could actually get serious run. Like we see it with
these guys who are projected for like 20 minutes and can shoot a little bit, like they're in play. They just are.
1,000%. And if they get hot, right? The coach has to leave them in. And they're going in against garbage backups sometimes, right? Like one example for like the Sixers is these guys are going up against like the Knicks, and their bench isn't that good. It's an easy unit to attack. So that's another thing to think about. Like what these bench players that come into the game, like what bench unit are they going against? Like you got Plowden's going against Talon Horton Tucker and all these guys. Like they're just not – it's like a G League game basically. So it's a really easy spot.
All right. We will certainly, like I said, we'll talk about we will talk about the play that I think is closest to those as we get to that game. But let's get started here, DC. Indiana heads into Detroit. Right before the show, it looked like Halliburton was still questionable. Don't know if that has changed. Benedict Mathurin, has been ruled out. He's suspended for a game for bumping into a female referee and saying something unsavory. On the Detroit side, everybody healthy. The prices are down. Everybody's healthy, though. It seems like a spot. It seems like a spot where I would want to maybe play Jalen Duren. But can you trust the Pistons at all with a fully healthy squad, DC? Talk to us.
Yeah, I think Duren's a really interesting play at 5.4 in this matchup. He's actually faced Indiana twice. Put up near 40 both times, averaged 38.4 in those two games in just 28 minutes. So he didn't even need the minutes against Indiana to have, that's kind of a Duren ceiling game, right? Close to 40. He doesn't really go much beyond that. So a great spot for him. And just in general, Cade Cunningham is a guy that I think we want to play a lot of. Emerging superstar, right? I think that's pretty clear at this point. Detroit's playing better. I think a good player, whether or not you play him tonight, a good player to be invested in, I think, a lot of nights. He's going to have a lot of big games. He's going to be consistent. I do like Cade Cunningham quite a bit. And just Detroit kind of feels like they've found their identity, especially with the missing. Ivy's a good player, but now Cade is surrounded by shooters, right? We've seen Beasley chuck a ton of threes. Hardaway has actually gotten more confident. I think he's a little bit interesting at 4,100. Oscar Thompson, who, I know the minutes aren't secure, JT, but this is we see what his brother's doing in Houston. Yeah. They're like kind of the same player. Very, very close.
Right. Both highly touted out of overtime elite in Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a $4,500 player who's probably going to get about 25 minutes in an up and down matchup against Indiana. like I could potentially see him quickly taking a leap into kind of what his brother is doing. So he's a guy that I like to play at that price point when the minutes look secure. So I actually like Detroit quite a bit here. I know they're healthy, but nevertheless, I think they're going to have big games. And then if Halliburton misses, with obviously Mathurin already out, Indiana becomes, I think, really interesting on the other side. Nembhard and McConnell would be the two I'd be looking most closely at. So I think a pretty good game to kick off the slate.
And Nembhard is going to start, and he'll take advantage of that opportunity. We've seen him do that when Halliburton has missed. Travis, what are your thoughts here? Indy at Detroit.
Yeah, we obviously need the Halliburton news, right? That's super important.
And we should get that here in the next maybe before 6:30. So we'll see.
Assuming he's out, man, going. I mean, you're playing probably Nembhard and McConnell, right? Maybe not McConnell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you need them both, but I think you're going to like those plays, right? Those two guys are definitely the ones that soak up a lot of the minutes. The problem is, and dude, it's Rick Carlisle, so like you just don't always know with him. He could pull one of those guys with a quick hook. That's something you kind of have to figure out the ownership and what you want to do. But yeah, I'm with you. Nembhard is, let's call him out. So he's 5.5K. He's shooting guard and point guard eligible, and then McConnell is 4.5. I typically lean to liking McConnell more in these spots, I would say, because I just think McConnell just being cheaper at 4.5. At that 5.5 tag, if he got 30, he wouldn't be guaranteed on the winner, right? So that was something I would think a little bit about. Of course, you have a Ben Shepherd, too. He is someone that could get some more run as well at 3.7K. So I just got to wait and see. And I just got to keep in mind, it's Rick Carlisle. You just don't exactly know with him at the time. So you got to figure out who is the most fragile based on the situation. I do think it will be a good spot for Pascal Siakam at 7.2K. He would be someone else that I would be looking at. And then, of course, the Detroit side, I like the call you said with Kate Cunningham. Listen, right now, as long as you have value, he's pretty much in play on any slate in almost any matchup, especially a matchup against the Indiana Pacers at home. So definitely a good spot for him. The Thompson stuff, the one thing I would say, and I agree with everything you said, Easy, right? It's 4.5K, feels like he'll pay off his tag. I just want to know what his ownership is, because when All-Star Thompson is chalk, I'm just not the biggest fan of him. And I understand right now it's around like 25%. 25 is fine, right? But when we start creeping to 40, 50, that's when I'm just like, is that the All-Star Thompson chalk that I want to eat? It all just depends. So that's just something to call out with him. I know he's going to, advance and probably be very similar to Amen Thompson, but that's my thoughts there. And then I'll answer King Mal's questions. Any props today? So for this game specifically, and I'll try to give one prop for each game, I have Pascal Siakam's over on threes at -105 over on DraftKings Sportsbook, so #DK partner. And that's also with the Halliburton stuff with him in, right? If Halliburton gets rolled out, that becomes an even better bet. So I think it's a good bet with Halliburton in. It'll become an even better bet. So that's where I'm at right now.
Final note on this game. We talked a little bit about Jalen Duren. Miles Turner only 6K in this matchup as well. For MME only, he's just all of these Pacers really, outside of maybe Nembhard and McConnell. If Halliburton is out, the volatility level for this team is off the charts in terms of minutes. But at that price point, I'm interested in Turner maybe a little bit more than I would be otherwise. So that's one note that I did want to make here. Move on to the next game. It is the Phoenix Suns heading into our nation's capital to take on the Wizards. 231.5 total here is nice. 11.5-point favorites, Travis, are the Phoenix Suns. They're going to be without Bradley Beal tonight. They're going to be without Nurkic as they have been, and they're going to be missing still Nick Richards, who has not showed up yet to the Suns. The Wizards going to be with everybody except for Malcolm Brogdon. And the one guy, you could talk about Booker, you could talk about Durant, but with no Bradley Beal, Tyus Jones on DraftKings at 4,200, 4,300, whatever the price point is. Tyus Jones is a guy that I'm looking at on this slate for value. What are your thoughts on the Suns and the Wizards?
Yeah, I definitely think this is a spot that we basically have to talk about here. It's a pretty important one overall. Clearly, you're going to like Durant and Booker. they're playing the Wizards. I mean, I think DC said this on a show. Like any slate, you got the Wizards on. Like the studs, you're just like you need to get them on your teams, right?
You got to
like,
think how this game's going to go down. It's going to be Booker and Durant just like pouring points on the Wizards. I mean,
yeah, and to be honest, another thing.
Maybe we're talking an 11-point spread. This is the highest spread on the slate. The Wizards have been competitive-ish in some games. They haven't been like the Nets. But what I would say is, if this game gets out of hand, the guys who have the best chance to make tournament-winning value, Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen. Not so much Plumlee, but maybe Plumlee. I don't love him, but I'm looking at Tyus and I'm looking at Allen, and then I'm sprinkling in those other two guys because you do have, again, you've got the Clippers without Kawhi. You've got that Houston-Sacramento game that's very interesting, I think. So I think there are paths here where neither Booker nor Durant are guys that you absolutely have to have. Go ahead, Travis. Sorry.
Yeah, so but I'll give you a couple narratives, JT. One is Kevin Durant going to Washington. He likes playing in Washington, right? They grew up in that area. He's always big about that. And then the Tyus Jones revenge, obviously. So you got that. I obviously am going to like Booker and Durant, right? There's just stuff you can't completely ignore. They're going to be good plays, so it is what it is. Tyus Jones just feels too cheap at 4.3K. So he's another one that I'll definitely be liking here. And I assume he's like part of their future, right? Like by future, I mean this year. Also, I know you say it's 11-point spread, JT, but like Phoenix kind of sucks, right? Like they're going to if they like are playing well, they're going to put up points and they're going to secure the win. They're 19-20 on the season. Like they need to start winning games. So overall, I do think these Suns are good. I'm obviously going to like Booker and Durant. The Washington side of the ball, I don't know. These guys just feel like bait. Like, do I really want to play Kyle Kuzma? I mean, Carrington's fine for a cheapie, but I just think there's better plays later on and other values that we can get to where I think you really want to be kind of under the field on these Washington plays. So it's mainly looking at the Phoenix side, looking at those studs and the values like a Tyus Jones.
DC, on the Washington side, there's been, like we see with a lot of similarly situated teams, a lot of minutes volatility. I think less so with Poole, less so with Kuzma. Of course, rumor is they want to move him, so maybe a little showcasing going on. What are your thoughts here on the Wizards and the Suns?
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of Poole and Kuzma. I doubt I'm going to get there in my three teams. But the Sun side, I think, is the more interesting one. We're on the same page here, JT. You mentioned the four guys that I think are really good plays on the Suns. I think you could conceivably play them together if you wanted. Durant and Booker, obviously, the two stars with Beal out. The guy who gets the minutes, right, in Tyus Jones, who's cheap at 4,300. And then, Grayson Allen's the other guy. I mean, this is a perfect game for Grayson Allen, right? Against the Wizards who don't play any defense. He needs the wide open threes. They're in transition. I mean, Durant right now is playing like 39 minutes a night. He's got the narrative. I think he's an awesome play at 9,200. I don't play Kevin Durant very, very often, but tonight, happy to do so. And then, I mean, like Tyus Jones is some of these value plays where like, he's a good player, right? And he's going to, maybe he misses his shots, but he's going to like play well because he plays well every night. And it's against the Wizards. So you just take the 25, 30 minutes at 4,300.
There's no Beal. There's no Beal there.
Yeah.
They're trying to trade. So they're showcasing a little bit. He was hurting them in the starting role. Put him on the bench, but still giving him minutes so other teams can see that he's still out there. No Beal, I think, opens up an extra 7 to 10 minutes.
For sure. And a lot of the value plays that we're choosing from, well, let's be honest, we're kind of guessing. We don't know how good they are, if they're any good.
Yep.
Tyus Jones, we know he's a good player. We know he's in a good matchup. We know the minutes are going to be there. So he's kind of got all three factors for me.
All right, we'll move on. Again, drop any questions that you have in the chat. The next game, man, this was a fantastic game. What was it, about a week, 10 days ago? Not even that. Cleveland now heading into Oklahoma City for the rematch. The Thunder favored by 2. DC, Isaiah Hartenstein's going to miss about a week, and that means that Jalen, not Jalen Williams, is for some reason overwhelmingly popular here. Looking like ownership estimates between 50 and 70%, depending on which site you look at, I think this is a situation much like we were talking about earlier, where I know he's 3,300. They don't really love this guy. Like, they went out and they got Isaiah Hartenstein. They're not trying to play this guy big minutes. What they did in the past when they missed Hartenstein this year and when Chet Holmgren got injured last year is they moved Jalen Williams over to the 5. Jalen Williams at 8K. I think it's a much better play than Jalen Williams at 3,300 if he's going to be 70% owned. We saw some huge ceiling games out of this matchup last week. Jared Allen leading the way with 57 fantasy points. I don't quite think he repeats this, but what are your thoughts here on the Thunder and the Caps?
Yeah, we've agreed on most of this show. I was going to have kind of an opposite take on Jalen Williams, but, haven't decided anything yet. We don't got to submit our lineups for an hour and a half. So obviously considering everything. So my take, JT, was that OKC, obviously their rise has been it's been patient, I would say, right? Where they've got all these assets and they're kind of biding their time. And they have chosen to keep Jalen Williams around all this time, right? They don't have to, I don't know. I feel like they've given him minutes as the backup when he's been healthy. Hartenstein's a really, really good player himself, right? So I don't know if it's a super big slight on Jalen Williams. So I was kind of inclined to play him at 3,300, assuming he is in the starting lineup. But I get what you're saying, and if he doesn't start, I think that would be really, really telling with Jalen Williams, where I wouldn't want to play him off the bench. But if he is in the starting lineup, I don't know. I'll still be pretty enticed at that low price point.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm fading him. I'm just saying at 70%, I could see where he gets you 23, and you're happy with 23.
He could get 14 or something too.
You're
right.
At 3,300. Look, David Roddy got 20 last night. Okay,
yep.
I was happy with 20 slate. 30, 23 points could be optimal on a 5-game slate. You never know if you get everything else right. Halliburton in, says Derek Ringering. So that makes that Indiana puzzle a little bit more difficult. Travis, what are your thoughts here on OKC and the Cavs?
Yeah, I did want to make sure I gave a bet from the last game. It was Tyus Jones under on 6.5 assists. Listen, I don't love it, but that's what the numbers say. I don't love it.
I don't love it, but here it is. I don't love it.
I'm just telling you, the numbers say it's a good one. I mean, it's a hot. He could get 5 assists.
Travis, you're supposed to pretend that you have some knowledge on this bet, not what the numbers say. Don't say you don't love the bet. You got to sell the bet. Come on, buddy.
All right. Well, I am going to sell this next one. I'm going to sell Jalen Williams over on 3s. You know why? Because I'm with JT Hayes. I don't like Jalen Williams that much tonight. I like Jalen Williams over on 3s because in a competitive game, you know what the Thunder are going to do? They're going to go with their small ball lineup. So we can take Jalen Williams over 1.5 threes at -110 over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. That's one I absolutely love. So I do think you're going to see those small ball lineups at times. Yes, I understand Allen and Mobley, they have the big matchup on Cleveland. But when the Thunder are in trouble, right? Or let's say they just start bombing it away with 3s. Okay, then what's Cleveland going to do to counter, right? Especially when they're up and then they're just handing it to Jared Allen, and Jared Allen's down there just shooting terrible hook shots all game. I do think there is an opportunity here for this Oklahoma City team to just run them out the gym and just play the small ball lineups. Now, I get it. It's Cleveland. I'm not saying, OKC's going to win by 20 or something like that. But the point I'm getting at is I actually think there's a lot of, based on the ownership we're seeing Jalen Williams, one, I could see foul trouble, right? We've seen Jalen Williams start. We've seen this guy start and get foul.
I'm jumping on board. I'm switching Jalen Williams. I'm on
Yeah. Well,
JT, I'll give you most of the credit, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I do.
This is like the Hamas peace talks, right? I get most of the credit, not. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't think he's great chalk, right? It's just I don't think it's the best play, and that's fine. The one thing I will call out with center, and we could maybe talk about this specifically because I think there are certain plays that are the biggest conversation of the slate. I thought Bogdanovich was the biggest conversation of the slate. I think Jalen Williams is the biggest conversation of the slate today.
He's the highest owned guy. I mean, obviously he's the biggest decision point at 3,300.
So my question is, why is he owned? I think it's because no one likes center, right? And let's just go through center real quick. I think that's the reason. I don't think people have centers they want.
I think there's a lot of good center plays, but go on.
Well, I'm just saying the field. I'm not saying JT Hayes. That's why you get second place, JT. You know, the field's a bunch of donkeys. That's why you're the best. But I just think that is the reason, because you got Sabonis that people don't always want to spend on. KD, they'll just put it power forward. Şengün, they got Mobley. And, like, there's no one cheap. Once you get below Miles Turner at 6K,
Durant.
It's Alex Sarr, Jalen Duren, Valanciunas. Like, there's just no value centers, right? And I think that is the reason why. I just think it's a default decision that the field is kind of making. And, yeah, they're assuming he's starting as well. That's totally part of the equation. But I just think there's paths where it could go pretty poorly for him. So I'm on the camp of I just want to try and stay, further away from that chalk. I'm not saying I'm going to full fade, but I do not think he is someone that you want to be like 70% of the field with, right? Like, get underweight up, Jalen.
One thing I'll never understand, if you think he's a bad play, if you think he is over-owned, in my opinion, you shouldn't play him at all. Why would you have a bad play in your portfolio?
If you're playing three lineups, you're absolutely right.
No,
right?
But I mean, I play golf this way with 150. I didn't play anyone that I thought was a bad play.
Some of the thought process in MME is you're playing plays that either you believe in or that statistically, mathematically are the most likely plays to have ceiling outcomes, right? And then the other group of players are players that you're like, I'm not sure what these guys are going to do. He's a guy where if let's just say like how I played the Hawks last night.
I think I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Still there. Yeah.
The ceiling. What's the ceiling for him is what he lets you get around him. I don't think this is a slate that you really need to worry about that. That's my opinion, right? I think, but there is, to Travis's point, there is another moderately priced center that I would much rather play and try and get in my lineup than him that's coming up later on. Travis, go ahead and finish out that thought.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it's also like when you're like swapping. Like yesterday, I wanted to have 0 Bogdanovich, and I had like 12%. It was like, I think it's because I was stuck with having to have him at small forward or whatever. But I don't know. I just don't think he's that great of a play, so probably will not have a lot of him. I'll definitely be very under on him. Of course, you can make a case for all these different stud options. From the Cleveland side, there's not a lot that I just want to play. I think that's a team I'm just not going to have a lot of exposure to. This feels like a better like game that, you watch rather than play fantasy options. But I can make a case for Jalen Williams and SGA. I think those guys are really interesting. And I'll give you one more guy that I think is always kind of intriguing. He's guard and forward eligible. He is clearly a high ceiling guy. And if they go small ball, and if it works, it's because Isaiah Joe is bombing away from 3. And I think Isaiah Joe is an interesting tournament play that I don't think enough people are playing. And if I pull up the ownership, I'm assuming no one's on him. I mean, no one. Let's see. Isaiah Joe's ownership is. Why is it not working? SaberSim's not working. It is. I can't see it. Won't let me. 5%. So there you go. I think he's a good play. And then I'll also call out Lou Dort just because they are going to need him defensively for Donovan Mitchell, and he will probably match his minutes on the court. So I think Dort and Joe are my favorite values on the OKC side.
Can't argue that Joe could possibly be a good play. I think there's more volatility there than I want. Max Struss is a guy for Cleveland, though. You talked about if it goes small, a guy that can get hot from outside. We saw what Oklahoma City did the first matchup where they worked really hard by putting Lou Dort on Donovan Mitchell to take him out of the game. Max Struss had a pretty good game in the first matchup. I think at 3,900, he's an interesting play on the Cleveland side. And then I think Mobley is a little bit interesting here, assuming that the Oklahoma City coaching staff got tired of getting torched by Jared Allen, may show him a little bit more attention in this matchup.
By the way, JT, one last thing to call out. If you think Jalen Williams is a bad play, I just pulled up the popcorn machine because I did want to check this. Last game that they played, when Hartenstein was off the court, they played a lot of Kenrich Williams instead. And it wasn't Jalen Williams, right? So if everyone's going to play Jalen Williams, I think Kenrich Williams could be a very interesting leverage off of Jalen. And if Jalen struggles to start the game, let's say he starts, he gets the 2 quick fouls and struggles, I could see them sticking with Kenrich a little bit more and him being a very contrarian value. Again, this is not a guy to lock button or anything like that, but if you look at Popcorn Machine and look at the minutes when Hartenstein was off the court, and when he was off the court in the fourth quarter, they were playing Kenrich Williams at the 5. They were not playing Hartenstein or Jalen Williams. Yes, at the end of the rotation, they played Hartenstein, but Kenrich was way more involved than Jalen. So that's an interesting nugget that I found.
One more piece of news on the Indiana Pacer game. In addition to Tyrese Halliburton, guys, Aaron Nesmith is also available to play. That kind of takes me off of everybody on Indiana, except maybe some, MME shares and maybe considering Miles Turner at 6K, but that's just too many bodies for Rick Carlisle to have any type of confidence in any single one of those guys outside of maybe Halliburton, but I'm not playing him. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that with Nesmith available.
That was my exact kind of instant reaction to was I'm just not going to play hardly any Indiana at all. So it sounds like we're all on the same page on that one.
Yeah, let's not play Rick Carlisle plays. It's 2025. We know this. So
All right, Adam G. Levert. He'll be in my MME pool, but I'm not super high on him. I think there are other places that I'd like to go at the positions and for value. And we'll move on to the next game, Travis. It is a back-to-back for the Clippers, coming off of an absolute beatdown of the Brooklyn Nets. What has gone on in Brooklyn is pretty sad since remember the day 3-4 years ago, they trade for Harden, Durant, Kyrie. Who could imagine that didn't work out other than everybody outside of the Nets front office? The Clippers will be without Kawhi Leonard on this back-to-back. Last night, Kevin Porter Jr., Coach Lou, the great Coach Lou, announced that Kevin Porter Jr. was going to be out of the rotation, but Terrence Mann would be in the rotation. Terrence Mann is questionable tonight. We don't know what he's going to do with Kevin Porter Jr. Don't think it matters all that much. Portland, Denny Avdia is questionable. Donovan Clingan and Jeremy Grant will remain out, and then Robert Williams, the backup center, is also questionable. He was upgraded, I think. I think he was upgraded from doubtful earlier in the day. Travis, because of the blowout yesterday, Ivica Zubac played, I think it was 22 minutes. He's 7,100 here in this matchup. It's a 6.5-point line. Clippers on the road. I kind of think that Zubac may be my favorite center on the slate. What are your thoughts here on the Clippers and the Trailblazers?
Yeah, I actually love the Zubac call. I think he makes a lot of sense here. One reason why is, what do you think the Blazers are going to do? They're going to play Ayton, right? Like, he's just going to play the minutes, and they're going to match it. And honestly, the Clippers want to play big. Like, Ty Lue, we've seen it. They tried to do the small ball stuff. It didn't work. They're committed to Zubac.
After 4 years of playing Zubac for like 18 minutes a night, he decided that, wait a second, I should take advantage of this guy. That you talk about bad coaches. But anyway, go on.
It also unlocks James Harden, right? Like, he is best and he's the system, right? It just makes so much sense. So I think Zubac's a great play. I mean, I'm exactly aligned with you on that, JT. The guy I did want to ask about, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just asking because the ownership's high. Delano Banton is looking to be very high owned on this slate. He is 3K. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad play, but I'm not totally bought in on it. I definitely want to get your guys' opinion on that. I will say the Kevin Porter Jr. stuff, he's just out of the lineup now. I assume he's going to be out for a while. I'm sure he was just a moron, and that's part of the reason why. Another guy that I actually think is kind of a sneaky play if you're building more balanced kind of builds. Let's say you're not going stars and scrubs. Norman Powell at 7.3K. He has definitely flashed some really nice ceilings when he has been playing some minutes. He's going to play the normal minutes. We're not obviously worried about a Kawhi Leonard or anything like that. He is out. This is a great spot in a revenge game for Norman Powell to really just step up and have a monster game. So I think Norman Powell's kind of a really good play. When you see the 7.3K price tag, you think it's uncomfortable, but I'm kind of on board with Norman Powell in this spot in tournaments.
DC, we like Zubac and Norman Powell. Of course, the news for Portland the other night was when Denny Avdia was ruled out, Scoot Henderson started, when absolutely nuclear. I believe that was against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, Denny's questionable. Not sure what Scoot's role is going to be, but what are your thoughts here on the Clippers and the Portland Trailblazers?
You're seeing the board clearly today, JT. I can just tell. Sometimes I'm not seeing it as clearly.
We'll see.
But I'm seeing it clearly enough to know that you're seeing it clearly. So I'm going to jump on board the Zubac train with you. I'm going to be watching your cores closely tonight, JT, and I'm going to be riding with some JT Hayes tonight. But I like the Zubac call. Honestly, all three of the main guys from the Clippers, Zubac, Harden, and Powell. I think all three guys are good plays. I mean, Clippers still plan to win. Good matchup for all of them against a Portland team where they should be able to kind of get what they want. And those are the main three guys that are going to produce for them. So I think all three have good games. And obviously, hopefully you get the one that kind of has the ceiling game. Zubac, yeah, I think he makes a ton of sense at that $7,100 price tag. Portland, I mean, yeah, obviously missing Grant, and then Avdia is doubtful. So I get to your point, man, going wide band is chalk, but this is the kind of chalk that I think you channel, or at least I think is good to get away from. He's not going to be in the starting lineup. He's coming off the bench. He's not guaranteed any more minutes whatsoever, right? He could easily just play 14, 15 minutes and miss his three-pointers, and, then you're talking about a kind of a busted play. So I probably won't go for the Delano Banton chalk myself.
All right, fair enough. Once again, guys, drop any questions you have in there. We've got one game to go, DC, the final game of the night. And this is an interesting game, too, one that I'm certainly interested in watching. The Houston Rockets on a back-to-back after taking down the Nikola Jokic-less Nuggets last night in pretty good fashion, so much so that minutes were not required. Heavy minutes were not required from guys like Alperen Şengün. Fred VanVleet has already been ruled out for the Rockets. Malik Monk will play for the Sacramento Kings. That means that they're pretty much fully healthy. I don't see much in this game that I feel just like are must plays. I think there's a lot of good tournament plays. I think Şengün's a good play. I think Amen Thompson is a good tournament play. Tari Eason is questionable. We should mention that. Tari Eason, if he's ruled in, could be a good play, but we've seen where they will also play these guys reduced minutes when they first come back in Houston. So not sure what that would do to the rest of the guys that people might be interested in, like the Cam Whitmores on the team. And then on the King side, I mean, Sabonis, Fox, Malik Monk is going to play. Any one of those guys can pop off. I just don't have a really good feel about which one it's going to be. Certainly all tournament plays. What do you see here?
Yeah, I think the Houston side is really interesting with VanVleet out. I haven't honestly taken much advantage of this Jalen Green tear that he's been on. I mean, look at this dude. I mean, this dude's putting up 45, 55 fantasy points every single game. That's with VanVleet in there for all or almost all those games. The talent has never been in question with him, and he seems like he's kind of finally figured it out. Now you take his running mate, VanVleet, who obviously has a big role in the team, out of the equation. A good matchup, I think, with Sacramento. I mean, it's not going to be Aaron Holiday that's running the show for the Rockets, right? It's got to be Jalen Green. So I think he's an awesome play at 7,400. And then, I mean, Amen Thompson, I've talked about his lack of scoring ability, his lack of shooting. That's a problem for him, but he can do everything else. This dude never ever even shows a moment's sign of fatigue. I mean, these are games. I think they're going to start playing this guy 41, 42 minutes a night against Sacramento. I think he's going to fill up the stat sheet here. So I like the Green Thompson combo, which might go a little bit overlooked. And then I'll take the third youngster as well, Cam Whitmore, who's kind of a pure scorer, 3,700 coming off the bench. I think they're going to need scoring. So yeah, I feel or see this Rockets team. To me, it's those three guys: Green, Thompson, Whitmore. I think all are really strong plays tonight.
DC Thompson's the guy that's interesting to me because he's priced up now. He's now think he's over. I think he's 8,100 on DraftKings.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get owned at all, even though you do have minutes to go around, you have usage to go around, and
he's going to have a good game. He's
been outstanding. Last night, a couple fewer minutes because they didn't need him. Jalen Green was a guy who got hot. He's interesting because I think he's going to be very low owned, and we've seen the upside in almost every game that he's played over the last 6 weeks. Travis, what are your thoughts here on the last game of the night, the Rockets and the Clippers?
Yeah, I think this game has a lot of potential to be really interesting. We need to obviously get some of this news. Like, I need to know about Tari Eason, because if Tari Eason is not in, and we start actually looking at what the rotation might be.
Eason hasn't played in a month.
Yeah, I'm with you. So but this is why I think it's important. So we know Şengün, Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and I assume they would start either an Aaron Holiday spot start, a Jayshawn Tate, or they just put Cam Whitmore in there. I think they still want Cam Whitmore off the bench, but
they probably start Holiday just to walk the ball up the court, and then he just doesn't do anything.
Correct. That's something they might do.
Reggie Jackson style, basically.
I think Cam Whitmore could be a really good play at 3.7K. I'm just trying to figure out, is there some guy off the bench, like a Reed Shepherd randomly, that is going to need actual real usage? Or, and this is certainly what they could do, they could just be listen, we're playing Jalen Green and we're playing Amen Thompson 42, 44 minutes, and Şengün's going to play 40, and we're just going to load the boat and not play these awful players.
That's what they're going to do here. They're going to ride
I think that the ability to rest some of these guys down the stretch last night was big for this game. As far as Tari Eason, the fact that he's questionable has me leaning that he plays, but maybe he plays 12 or 15 minutes, just enough to get a little bit of a feel for the game again and slowly ramp him back up.
Yeah, another guy who I could see them playing minutes, and I'm not saying play him, but I could see them going Jeff Green more, just because they think he's a responsible guy they can trust, at least play a little bit of, handling the ball and not be an idiot like a Reed Shepherd or a young guy. So I'm just trying to figure it out to see if there is anything there. But I do think if there's any guy off the bench on the Rockets, you would want Cam Whitmore, right? We trust him. He could gain a lot of minutes. So I do like Cam Whitmore as a value. The Sacramento side, I just don't like a lot, mainly because, Malik Monk is clearly going to be back. He was at shoot-around. Yeah. It's just more of a crowded situation now. And I don't want to play some of these values, right? Do I want to play Keon Ellis at 4-1 with Monk back? No, not really, especially in a matchup against the Rockets. So it's really just liking these main Rockets that we know are going to get a pile of minutes. A Jalen Green, an Amen Thompson, a Şengün, or maybe a Cam Whitmore off the bench. I'm not super excited about Dylan Brooks. Again, he's only power forward eligible, which really sucks that he's only power forward eligible. I think that makes it a little bit of a tough spot. And he's 5K, and I just don't think this is the best spot for him. So I really want to focus on those guards. They're just going to get a pile of minutes and do pretty good.
A pile of minutes. People asking about Reed Shepherd. He's not a guy that he's not a play here. He's not a play here unless you're multi-entering and you're going to end up getting 2% of him. So
the only way I would play him is if I had some kind of inkling that he was going to start, or if the beat writer said hey, he's going to run the second unit.
Click on this guy's DK picture and tell me you're going to play this guy. There's no way you're playing this guy.
DC, we watched him in person, and he sold the bag for you in person, if you remember, when we watched Kentucky play Vanderbilt. So you're definitely not a Reed Shepherd guy.
No, he sucks.
Okay. All right. There you go. Okay. We an hour until lock. Obviously, we're not going to go much longer than a few more minutes. We've covered all 5 of these games. Any other questions? Beefy Slayer says he dropped 43 in the G League the other day.
He did. He'll time will come. It'll probably be April, but not yet.
They're out on the West Coast. He may have been playing against Bronnies, so you gotta kind of negate those stats. All right. Let's give a play of the day for the people here. We'll start with you, Beefy 5-layer. All right. Travis, we'll start with you because you seem energized. Housekeeper's been there. Got your lunch from the gas station today. Who's the sweet Travis play of the day?
We are going to go with 7.3K Mr. Norman Powell in a little bit of a revenge game against the Portland Trailblazers. Don't worry, JT, you can give out your guy on the Clippers as well. There's plenty of points you can put up against Chauncey Billups' shitty Trailblazers. So I like Norman Powell. I think he is going to be underowned, and I'm thinking he's going to put up 45 plus. So Norman Powell play of the day.
45 plus for Norman Powell. Listen, no one has revenge. They are grateful for Chauncey Billups for setting them free into the wild, but it is a fantastic matchup. And you're right. I am going to go with Zubac on this slate matchup against DeAndre Ayton and the Portland Trailblazers. He played in the low to mid 20s last night. I think he's going to have a big game here, help the Clippers win this one. DC, Mom's Basement play of the day.
We're going out to Sacramento, I guess, but we're going with the Houston Rocket, Mr. Jalen Green, who I think is going to nuke on Sacramento with Fred VanVleet out.
All right, there it is. Norman Powell, Ivica Zubac, Jalen Green, the three plays of the day. Core plays will be up, probably floating, beginning to percolate here in the next 15, 20 minutes. They'll all be up before lock. The player pools, the playbook will be updated, the heat map or the meat map, as some of you call it. And then as the guys mentioned, a big weekend here, NFL cores, NFL playbook, 3 max strategy, showdowns for the featured playoff games, and then all day Monday, NBA. For DC, for Sweet Travis, good luck in your contest tonight.